Welcome to Speaking from Experience from the team at CorticoX, an experience-led transformation firm helping companies unlock growth by aligning strategy, technology, and human-centered design. I'm Len Devanna. In this series, I sit down with leaders who don't just talk about experiences, they've built them, they've led them, and they've learned from them. These are the real stories behind great experiences. If you like what you hear today, please follow the show, leave a review, and check the show notes to learn more about CorticoX. Let's cue the jingle and start the show. My guest today is Todd Unger, Chief Experience Officer at the American Medical Association and author of the best-selling The 10-Second Customer Journey. Todd's team was recently named Best Customer Experience Team of the Year, which is no small feat. And the way he talks about customer experience, less as a department, more as an orchestration layer, really hits home with me. I couldn't be more excited for this discussion, and I'm really glad you're here for it. Todd, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Speaking from Experience.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you.
Let's get right into it. As I could talk to you for an awful long time, I'm going to do my best to manage myself, but I'm a giant fan. You've described yourself, I want to start with sort of a big picture, Todd Unger, before we talk about the book and then the AMA. You've described yourself as an accidental CXO. Let's start there. What does your journey look like, and how did it bring you into this role?
Being accidental, of course, because there was no such thing as a CXO when I started my career. And I think the premise of a chief experience officer is still being defined as it is even today. I started my career in marketing. I went into advertising, and then in the very early days of the internet to AOL. And then in a bunch of different media companies. So I had like this marketing phase. I had this kind of initial digital media phase. And then I call the last third, which is more in digital commerce and membership and subscription generation. And all three of those things are really corner pieces, plus customer service, which is something that I've picked up at AMA as well, of what I define as customer experience today. So it's been an accumulated skill and aspirational journey for me.
That really resonated with me. It hit hard. I very briefly did a lot of digital marketing in the early days of web, found myself doing partner marketing, ultimately customer service. This was all through the lens of digital, helping brands understand how to activate various audiences at various times of the customer journey. And it was about 2005, 2007 that I stepped back and realized I had my own inflection point, that I'm in the customer experience business. I'm not a digital guy. So that really, really hit home. And just for our audience, I would encourage you to reflect sort of where you are in that journey. What's your role for customer experience? Even if you're sort of focused on one focus, one spot of the business, we'll talk about this more later. But what's your role in improving overall customer experience for your brand? I love the story, Todd. So thank you for sharing. I've been very lucky in my career. I've worked with a lot of different brands, big brands, Apple to Starbucks, Google to Lucid. And the reason I share that is I've come to believe that the fundamentals of great customer experience don't change. Doesn't matter if you're selling a cup of coffee or a luxury electric supercar. What truths do you pull through from earlier roles that still guide you today?
It's funny you should mention that, because I do advise people that avoid like really sexy looking jobs, because they're not exciting, and where you really learn a lot and have a lot more chance to grow is with things that seem boring. So like one of my major aha moments happened with a plastic container that I came up for an idea with when I was in advertising. And I wrote down these words: a container you love to use and can afford to lose. And the moment at which you can see the light go on in somebody's eyes that you've overcome something and tapped into an insight that's going to compel them to act. That to me was a transformative move. And that is at the beginning of the journey. If you want to hit 10 seconds, you better be able to describe what your product does in a way that gets someone to act instantly, because how we started this business and in terms of how much time you had to tell your story, and now like it's gone to nothing.
For sure. Actually, and that pulls through not only from a brand side, but again, to an individual side. I oftentimes encourage folks, what's your elevator pitch? If you find yourself in the elevator with the CEO and he says, what do you do for my business? What does that look like? And if you can't If you can't tell that story in 10 or 15 seconds on the personal brand side, that's something to work on.
Yeah. And you're just again, listening to you thinking about your own journey there. Some people think it was very weird for me that I was in horse racing, but it was a digital business, running a betting platform, selling premium content. And the chance there was to really figure out what is stopping people from, things like signing up, logging in, and all of this friction that we put in people's way to get done what they're just trying to do, and to then assume responsibility for getting that fix. And it's one of those things that goes beyond design, and it goes beyond a lot of the things we traditionally think about that are in the realm of our jobs, and to take responsibility for actually fixing problems.
I suspect you'd agree. The superpower that I think I realized that helped me in my journey later on was empathy. Empathy for the audience. When you put themselves in their shoes, it's not about the UI that we're designing inside, or the sales, the marketing, the service systems. It is about being the user or the audience and living that journey.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't listen and understand. When you say empathy, it's what are those people trying to go through to buy your product? Sometimes I would just say, like, I'm just trying to buy something from you. Why are you making it so hard? But it's not just a bunch of clicks. There is a lot that goes into that process of making it easy for someone to act.
I want to pivot and talk about the book. I'm going to gush for a second. I'm going to embarrass you. Forgive me.
You can gush all you want.
Buckle up.
All right.
This is a phenomenal read. I mentioned a few minutes ago about my career. I consider myself very, very lucky to have helped the companies that I have. This is my passion. And as I read this book, and we'll put up the cover, the 10-second customer journey, so the audience can see it and find it. Every page, I just nod my head. Yep, 100%. This is not theory. This is real world practical advice for dramatically impacting and evolving brands. And as far as I'm concerned, and again, I've never done this before, it's coming from the heart. This is a must read for any business leader aspiring to really leverage customer experience as a growth engine and a competitive differentiator. Full stop. So Todd, I want to talk about the book, but I wanted to start.
I wish I could put that blurb in my book.
Feel free.
Thank you.
No, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to write it, because I think it's a high value piece, and it's going to help a lot of people. And I mean that absolutely sincerely.
Well, thank you. That is actually the most gratifying part of having written this, is when people say stuff like that. It does make it feel like it was worth it.
Yeah, good. You should feel that way. Let's go right back to basics, because I've heard or I've seen customer experience as a term is thrown around a lot. Oftentimes it's misunderstood. So let's just go right to the foundation. How do you define customer experience?
So a lot of people, when they hear that word, they do think about feelings, and they think about live retail interactions. Because of where I've come from, where this digital influence, and trying to guide people through that process, I came up with my own definition. It is the seamless integration of marketing, product, commerce, and service to acquire and retain customers. And I think those words were chosen very carefully, because they do, first of all, make up the corners of the X in the book of marketing, product, commerce, and service. But what it's in pursuit of is different than I think a lot of people think about customer experience. It is about growth, flat out. And that is my take on customer experience, is like, basically, how do I unlock growth using the tenets of this definition around experience?
I love the visual in the book. You say you've got to put the X in CXO, the integrator of product, marketing, commerce, service, the customer, and the organization. As you've suggested, we'll put that graphic up. Maybe unpack a little bit for us what that looks like in practice.
Well, first of all, a lot of people would ask me, what the heck is a chief experience officer? And they think about the CX in that. And that is, again, a term a lot of people really don't understand. But then, I got to that X because I looked at, where is success occurring in my operation or in history, my career history? It's always been where you've got all four things working together. And I think a lot of the mistakes that happen in business today is because, somebody might have a great idea, but it doesn't match up against the rest of what it takes to grow something. And so, when you start with marketing, and that's really one of the things that I recommend in the book, which is how do you validate the target audience and what a great idea is. And then you move through that process of all the parts of that particular journey to get somebody to buy something or join something or do something for you. So to me, that's how I describe what success looks like. And even like at the AMA where I am now, that's how we built the engine that's brought us to record growth.
Again, I'm going to say a lot of things. I suspect you'll agree. Please challenge if not, but some of it just playing off the point. And one of the reasons that I was doing the violent head nodding when I read this chapter was my biggest wins have been when you would break down the silo and put the marketing folks in the room. I'm generally a marketing guy, but bring the service folks in and the sales folks in and say, hey, we're thinking about a campaign. Here's how we're going about it. Here's how we want to measure. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And just in that fundamental opening the conference room door and inviting other orgs in, not only did we get a better product, but everyone felt unified, everyone felt aligned, and everyone felt like they had some skin in the game. And that was the very fabric of starting to do exactly what you describe in breaking down those silos.
Yeah, and that's a feeling that a lot of people don't get in an organization because normally those individual business units that you were talking about are working independently, sometimes at cross purposes. It just feels like a battlefield all the time to try to get anything done. But what I'm recommending in the book is you have to say, like, those are the levers of growth. So why don't you actually bring them together? We think a lot about modern organizational structures today. Like, where do all those things exist? They're separate and they report up into separate people. Why not look in and say, how does growth occur in my organization? Why don't I bring those together structurally? And if not, very close team relationships so that those people are working together toward a common metric. And that's just not the case, but it's required in today's digital business.
I've come to appreciate that the traditional organizing model that industry has used for hundreds of years, it served us well up until really, I think, the advent of digital. And now the consumer has a very, very different platform. And if you put on that empathy hat again, the customer today doesn't say, well, I have a problem with this campaign. Let me talk to marketing. Or, man, the sales process is broken. Let me find the guy or gal in sales. They are looking at brand. And if you are not breaking down those silos and acting as one, that's going to expose itself in your experience.
That is absolutely right. I think one of the things I say in the book is the customer does not care about your organization chart. They just think of you as one entity and one brand, as you say. So they don't really care that it's marketing's fault or sales fault or product development's fault. They just want to do what they're trying to do. And it is hard. And so when you see it working in certain situations, like, you got to step back and say like, wow, that I know that's difficult to put together. But bravo. So, they're just to break down those silos and act in unison is the goal.
We had Jeff Marks on a couple weeks back, or a couple episodes back, from Munich Re, North America Insurance, and one of the things we talked about was happy employees equal happy customers. It was that connection that if you do what we're talking about here, if you break down those internal organizational barriers, if you get teams working together and unified, they get excited, they get happier about end results. That manifests itself in experience, and it ultimately ends up in happier or improved customer satisfaction.
I think so too. I mean, I believe in creative friction. And when you put teams together that have different goals and different skill sets and, they're all the traditional things, sales and marketing, like, how's that going to work? Like, all those dynamics still occur, except you're on the same team and you have the same metric. And so to me, that is what changes things, so that you're working toward a common goal and have the same way that you're going to be judged.
Putting a bow on this for folks aspiring to be in the CX space, or for leaders in the CX space today trying to find their way, would you say that CX leadership, for lack of a better term, is more about enablement, evangelism, execution? or yes to all?
Here's what I say when I talk to folks in CX is, don't talk about CX, talk about growth. And when you are in a CX position, people don't really care about these big ideas. Like they didn't, grok digital transformation, a decade ago. What they really understand is you did something, you did X and Y occurred. I fixed my email program. I made this change on our checkout page. I did this and this. And each time I did that, this kind of growth occurred. And then you can look and you say, I did 10 of those things. And in retrospect, wow, that's customer experience. But in the meantime, they want to see you as the growth driver. And the reason that you're able to do that is because you understood the process and how to unlock those things. And, the major problem with CX right now is that a lot of the problems that they occur in these spaces that nobody owns, or they sit between teams. And so you got to be that person. I'm going to bring this together and figure it out and fix the problem.
How do you handle that, inevitable turf wars, accountability challenges, and ultimately get to shared wins?
I think that's the key thing is shared wins. And in every case that we have done in my organization right now, it's been about painting that scenario, which is like, if we can do this together, this is how we're all going to benefit. This is what is standing in the way of unlocking growth. And it's like these 5 things that cut across this organization. If we fix this, everybody's going to win and we're going to grow. So painting that scenario is probably the single most motivating factor.
Getting everyone to row in the same direction for the same reason, huh?
That's it.
In our digitally enabled world, it's flipped the traditional linear marketing funnel on its head, thankfully, because it was a broken model. In the book, you write that you note the fact that you open up your social feed, you go from not being aware of something to having it in your cart to buying it in 10 seconds, and you refer to that as the tornado funnel. How should brands maybe talk a little bit about the tornado funnel a bit, and how should brands design for that kind of speed without losing the depth, trust, or long-term value?
Yeah, because a lot of those things, they still matter. They just happen at warp speed. When I started my marketing career, it was that linear funnel that you're talking about. You went from awareness, which you spent, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising on the brand part to raise awareness. And you would hear people say, like, that's the goal, is build awareness. And then there was like, okay, now interest. I'm telling a compelling story that's going to get somebody, basically hooked. And then I'm going to get them to buy something, and then they're going to try it. And then will they repeat? And a year has gone by, right? And $100 million. Today, people don't have time for that. They are paying attention to only do a certain amount of things that they're interested in. They will see something in the feed or in a digital ad. You have exactly 1 second to make that connection with someone before they move on. And if you're lucky enough to get them to click and learn more, you have just a couple of seconds for them to understand what the proposition is, where it fits in your life, to do whatever kind of research they're going to need to do, and then click to buy it. And if you have structured this properly, that can literally be executed in 10 seconds. And if it's not, well, goodbye. They're probably not going to come back. So the elements of that purchase funnel are still there. They just happen like that. And sometimes they happen simultaneously. So the difference between awareness and interest is milliseconds. Right? We're not spending a lot of time in between these things. You've got to be able to follow that funnel, because that's the speed at which your customer is moving.
And I think what gets lost in the traditional model, it was an epiphany for me a decade or so ago, but the word retention or advocacy didn't show up, right? We went to the transaction and we sort of full stopped. But, and this is why I think service folks or post-sale folks are the unsung heroes today, because they're still not looked upon as the catalyst of retention. as you suggest, that to transaction funnel has to be frictionless, and we have to be adept and quick at it. But then the post sale as well has to be equally as frictionless. And if you do those things right, plus good product, you will build an army of brand advocates that will serve as your best marketers. But I think industry at large still loses sight of that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I think that's where that idea of customer experience, as opposed to customer service, because we always think of like customer service is like the place where there are problems at the end after somebody bought something and they're unhappy with whatever it is that they paid for. The real job is to prevent those things from ever happening in the first place. And so the way that we built our team is that we started with someone from customer service repositioning themselves as customer experience. And the more problems we fix, the fewer contacts and complaints that are going to come through. We could just, my hope is that we just cycle out all the end of the process fixers and make it a smooth process for everyone along the way so that they don't need that. That's why people will stick with you, because it was, to borrow a term from another experience thing, effortless.
You talk about the customer friction index, which is sort of pulling this all together. And I love that you pulled someone from a service role into your AMA team. I want to go there, but before we do, how does customer friction index compare to or complement more traditional metrics like NPS or CSAT?
Yeah. So this is interesting because this organization that I'm in right now, the AMA, we're not traditional NPS users. I think there's certainly a role for that. And there are people that have decades of experience with this. It's just not something we started with. And I don't necessarily think, even if I had the option to do that, I would, because I don't think it's as actionable as what we have right now, which is to say, how many problems are people experiencing relative to how many people are trying to use it? And that's an indicator that is very actionable and a trend that you can watch. And I think where we're seeing the innovation right now is the detection of what the number of problems in that numerator are. And that's been a big change for us. So I can track that, and I can track that against every piece of our digital platform and understand how are they getting to what they're trying to do? Now, we do still use traditional customer service metrics like a CSAT and other stuff like that. So that hasn't gone away. But I'm interested in the most actionable and immediate feedback that I can get in this world to reduce friction for the people that are our customers.
This might be a bigger question than we have time for, but how do you measure that friction, and does it show up on executive scorecards at the AMA?
So I think that's where, again, innovation is occurring. The old way was you collected how many contacts were coming into your service center. And so, whatever form that is, which we're a multi-channel customer service operation, we were collecting those. And that's how we built our original customer friction index, is how many complaints. And then you're looking at your analytics to say how many sessions are occurring on each of those things. We have recently, as in like a year ago, instituted a new piece of software that happens to be called Quantometric, that is basically a 24/7 monitoring service that uses machine learning and AI to identify what are likely points of friction. So let's say somebody comes to your site and they hit, some action button and nothing happens. The page doesn't load. So it's kind of like the equivalent of like pushing the button on the elevator and, it never coming. You can collect those. That's called a rage click, apparently. So you can collect things like that and many other types of things where basically you might not have known about it ever, or for a long time. Like we've had pages on the site where like the upsell link is broken. It's like, oh my God, how have we gone for like weeks without knowing something like that? Because like you're not the user. You're not logged in like a user. You may never come across that. And that's where something like when you think about the benefits of AI right now, like think about that as a relief for the not knowing that there's this problem that exists.
It's a very tactical thing I've used with clients or colleagues in the past that sort of plays off that. And it is, the example that came to mind as you were saying that is I recall a day where our email subscription model wasn't working. So people were putting their emails in and would go into the ether and never will they hear from us again, which how does that happen? But, my tactical suggestion to people is pick up the phone and call your company's 1-800 number. Email yourself and see what that looks like, because so often it is wrought with friction, to your point. And when you see it, you scratch your head like, how did we get here? And it's quite easy to fix, but you need to see it first.
Yeah. And you mentioned the scorecard too. That is something that we provide each of the units across the organization is what their scorecard looks like. And we do kind of centralized monitoring of what the scorecard looks like. So if something starts to take off, we're not waiting for somebody to call us or write us and tell us that there's a problem. We're telling them in advance. I think one change we did made is at first we had all these scorecards and they were kind of public, not to the public, but like to everybody within the organization. And once we added in the automated friction detection, like all the numbers went up dramatically because there's this whole new source of insight about where things might be going wrong. And so a lot of people were a little bit sensitive about that. And so we, not surprisingly, just pulled back and made that kind of unit by unit. And we're the kind of go between all these different groups.
I want to pivot and talk about the AMA because the work that the team is doing there is simply amazing. Let me just close here with a provocative question. Is there an end state? What I mean by that is, does a successful CXO ever put themselves out of work?
I hope the answer to that is no.
Fair enough.
I'll tell you what has always astounded me. I have an absolutely fantastic team. And they have really embraced this idea that like there is no end to the improvement. And so there are certain things that happened over the last week that people will show me the results of the tests that they've run or new initiatives they've done, the number of members that are coming through certain channels. And you think to yourself like, oh my God, even after 8 years of being here, we're still putting points on the board like that. It's so encouraging. So I think the answer to that is no. And part of that is that you have new tools. We have new tools on board through, Marketing Cloud, Data Cloud, our own analytics and sophistication of our data science team that we didn't have before. And so there are new capabilities and new ideas that are coming out of that, new things to test. And things do take a while. And if you're proceeding responsibly, because you're spending money, from pilots to tests and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's an important thing I talk about in the book is just building that culture of testing. And if you do that, I think it's kind of a prerequisite to this never-ending source of growth. So I don't know about you, but they keep looking to me and saying, how are we going to grow next year? So I know I got to keep coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, I think you'd agree the success or satisfaction, maybe both, comes when you successfully realize that cultural change, the customer-centric cultural change. That is the win. But to your point, the role of innovation and evangelism is never done.
It isn't. And I think, again, that's not traditional to a lot of organizations because a lot of those results will stay within their silo. But I'll tell you, what's really motivating to our IT group is to see the results of what we've done together. We have partners on the mission side of our organization. Let's say that they're working on well-being or education, to take them the results and say, here's how many new people are using the work that you're producing because we have partnered on this stuff. That's how, again, back to that idea of how to create the wins. It's through sharing that data.
For our audience, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. Todd, everything you're saying is resonating and amazing to me. If you're enjoying the conversation, please like and follow the channel. Leave a comment. Let us know this is the sort of content and conversation that you're looking for, that you find value in. Todd, let's pivot to the AMA. I'm as equally a big fan of the work that yourself and your team are doing there as I am the book. AMA has been around for, I believe, keep me honest, over 175 years. What's it like modernizing CX in an institution with that degree of legacy?
It's actually like a thrill, because I think one of the things that you learn very quickly is there are just like no better humans on earth than physicians, and they are doing such amazing work that it's exciting to just help them. And so that's how my team is really structured, is how do I help a medical student, a resident, a physician succeed and improve patient care overall by getting rid of the things that stand in the way of between a doctor and a patient. And I don't know if you've been reading the news, but it turns out there are a lot of things that stand in the way of that. You've got a group of people that go to school for a very long time and have years and years of training and expertise. And then we just basically throw everything at them, to try to keep them from doing what they're really good at, which is saving people. So, again, when originally they came to see me for this job, I was like working in horse racing, and I asked them like, why are you even talking to me? But they had a really good instinct, which is they weren't looking for someone necessarily with healthcare experience. They were looking for someone who was going to be able to come in and redefine the way in which we were engaging with the physician audience. And that, I'll just very, very simply was, sending a lot of direct mail, and hoping that people were going to join back. And that's not how it works today. Today it's about how do you have a constant conversation with people and show them the proof that their membership is working. And that has got to be something that happens every day in every channel that they're using. And so when I look back on like how far we've come in those 8 years, it's really a testament to the organization and the leadership of the organization, of how much support they were willing to put behind this, that has resulted in this rapid progress that we've seen. And it shows, because we're at really a 25-year high in terms of membership right now. So that's the payoff, is its growth.
You bring up an interesting point, an important point. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they're looking for a CMO and a CXO for their industry. And they were hell-bent on the notion that they have to have domain expertise in our vertical. They have to come from our vertical. And my challenge is, I think that is way off.
That's not the word I would use. I was going to use something that might not be able to be used on your program. I agree with you, however.
You just get not only a different energy, but let's pretend for a second it's I come from automotive, so I'll pick on the automotive sector. When I joined Lucid, I had no automotive experience, and one of the things Lucid was doing was looking to, hey, we want to borrow from Apple, Google, Microsoft. We want to learn from tech. We don't want to keep on the silos, if you will, of automotive. And I think that notion of always trying to stay within industry is a giant miss.
I think that my conclusion is 100% agreement. I think that under the covers, when you look at the business between horse racing and medicine, like the context could not be farther apart, but the mechanics and the growth engine are virtually the same. And so that's why the elements of the playbook that I write about in the book have transitioned from packaged goods to, advertising, to digital, gaming, and now here, because they are a common. And it's more important to have somebody that understands that playbook and can operationalize it, because you can learn the business, relatively fast. And if you enter with humility and you have empathy and you are going to learn. But my job is not to be a doctor. My job is to help doctors. So this is how I can do that part better.
One of the most challenging aspects, in my experience, of getting CX right is breaking down those traditional silos that we've been struggling with for decades. What's worked for you at AMA early on? What tactics did you use?
I think one really effective thing, and this is probably the hardest thing to do, is to really look at the structures. Because when I did start, was my realm was membership, and that was separate from marketing and the website and our social media and creative. And you can kind of look at that and say, like, well, no wonder you're having trouble getting traction, because those are all part of that X and those elements. And so how do you build a case that says we really need to rethink the structure to bring the growth levers together? And I'll tell you, once that happened, everything changed. And then it's to take that model of an enterprise view and say, okay, now how are we going to change things in line with our brand strategy and start to bring that to life? So I'd say that's the hard one and the big one that took time. And then in the meantime, it's like I'll call it quick win city, which is like, how do you look for the quick wins? Either things you can, basically do because they're self-contained in your own group, or things that are pretty close in that you're willing, find a willing partner to be able to do it with you.
We talked earlier about empathy for the audience you're trying to serve, but playing off your point is also the power of empathy to your colleagues across the organization.
I love this story because when I first started, there had been a consulting study done that showed that it took the organization, my team, 47 days to send out an email from start to finish. And, I came from a much more nimble kind of background. And so I started to look into that, and you just see how much inefficiency had been built in, and the who was actually involved in the email process and writing and all this stuff. And I just made a very quick change and said, this is how we're going to do this. And I rolled my sleeves up and worked with a designer, and we built new templates and started testing them. But the thing that I noticed in that was there were a lot of miserable people in that process. And even though some people were not happy about being kind of cut out of it, at the same time, who wants to bang their head up against a wall with a broken process? And it does take someone that comes in as a CXO or a CMO or whatever it is that has the authority and the impetus to just say, this process is not working anymore, and we're going to stop doing it, and we're going to move to this way and show how much it works better. And again, back to your thing, happy people it's better to have people feeling like their time has been well spent and not futile.
It's been one of the most valuable or rewarding, I should say, pieces for me, is just helping liberate the folks with the shop. They're doing the hard work. To your point, you don't have to do it that way anymore. You don't have to be frustrated. Let's pivot. What do you think is best for the audience we're trying to serve? And that can dramatically change attitude.
Yeah, part of your being a good CXO is just giving permission to change.
It's a great point. Let's talk a bit about the genesis of your team. You said earlier you started with one person coming from a customer service oriented role. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, today they're a core leader of the organization. Tell us more about the evolution of the organization, if you would.
Yeah, so I'll call it 6 years ago, I'm trying to make sense of my own title, and I don't really know as much as I should about CX at all. And so I did go to my customer service leader. This is a person that had been at the AMA approaching 20 years with extensive experience, before that, running a top-notch customer service operation. But I really thought she could use this is a great opportunity. And I kind of handed her the ball and said, go fix this and understand, what is our CX strategy? And, within a year, we have a CX strategy. We have Forrester certification. We've got, a small nucleus of people, and really the strategy laid out, and we kind of started building from there. So even today, I would say the size of that team is, say, 6. But the big change is that we've brought in 400 people across the organization to participate in CX initiatives for their own projects and their own business units. And we just, in the last 2 years, we won like best employee driven CX as an award, which is just a testament to like how deeply ingrained in the culture customer experience is now and like how people understand it. And this person that, I initially gave the challenge was just selected as CX leader of the year. So, it's shocking how much progress you can make in a period of short time if you have the right person and right kind of dedication to it and the right results.
Exceptional leaders build exceptional teams, and you've clearly done that. And I'll just take a moment to applaud you.
Oh, thank you.
They're doing amazing work. And you mentioned a number of awards. I believe one on top of that is Best Customer Experience Team of the Year as well.
Yeah, 2024. I know.
Phenomenal.
It's exciting.
It's absolutely phenomenal. But to your point, oftentimes you hear people say, well, I've only got a couple people. I need 50. I need 100. And the answer is no, that's not right. You need a small powerhouse of highly empathetic people who believe and can serve as change agents and influencers across the organization. And if you have that combined with the vision, you can move a mountain, full stop.
Yeah, I've seen lots of different models of how CX works out there, and I don't think that one where you build this big separate group telling people what to do ever is going to work. I think it's really about building expertise across the organization and doing whatever it takes to facilitate that work.
You mentioned this earlier. AMA has seen its membership growth, largest membership growth in the past 20 years. What role has customer experience played in that growth?
So a lot. And I think the key thing is to use the definition that I'm putting forth in the book, because again, it's not about a feeling. It's about starting at the beginning and really understanding your target audience and then building all of that steps that take someone from basically not knowing anything or not believing to, becoming a member. And if you can put all of those things in place, I think that's really the key part of it. That most people don't really, when they hear a customer experience, they don't understand that it includes developing a new target segmentation, developing a new brand strategy, building a storytelling platform, fixing your e-commerce platform, banging again and again on your checkout page to make sure that thing is working as hard as it can. Having a great customer experience and customer service team at the end to solve problems and just making sure that people can enjoy the benefits that they signed up for. Like, it's that whole spectrum of things that has really contributed to the growth. And that's what I call experience.
When you think about other organizations who are less customer facing, legal, finance, HR perhaps, what do you lead with in helping bring them along for the journey and helping them understand that they're in fact part of the mission as well?
I think everybody has a problem they need to fix, and everybody's trying to grow. I don't know of one part of our organization that is not part of that and isn't clear on where they fit into that growth process. A lot of times what they lack is the understanding of how to systematically approach what that problem is and to fix it. So if you think about, there are problems in every group, like the contracting process, the hiring process, the onboarding process, like all of those things have customer experience built into them and have to be thought about systematically.
I love that. Customer experience in the broader, it infers employee experience, it infers onboarding, new hire experience. There are opportunities to improve experience every aspect of the business. Let's wrap with a closing insight, Todd. Then I want to hit you with what I call the Fast Five. Yeah, I know. Buckle up again. If someone's stepping into a CX leadership role for the first time, what's the one thing you'd want them to understand right out of the gate?
Don't talk about customer experience, talk about growth. And growth is built on a series of incremental steps that add up to something big at the end. So look for those wins, look for how to build partnerships across teams to get those wins.
Very nice. Very nice.
And by the way, buy the book, because there is a playbook for customer experience out there.
Let's wrap up with a Fast Five. This is considered the speed dating for podcast questions. Biggest CX myth. What's one thing people are still getting wrong about customer experience?
That it's about a feeling.
Your favorite brand experience outside of healthcare?
United Airlines.
Second person, give me that answer. Nicola Roday, sometime back. That's fascinating. We have to get the folks from United on. One tool that your CX team couldn't live without?
Quantometric. That's our friction detection system.
Makes full sense to me. What's worse, too much data or not enough data?
Not enough data. Absolutely.
I'm going to break my own rule. How do you know when you're getting it right with data?
If you see that translate to actionable growth.
Fair enough. You have 30 seconds with the new CEO who doesn't understand CX. I think I know your answer. What do you say?
That's funny because I do have a new CEO as of July, and I just talked to my CX director about the meeting that she's going to have with them. And just like with my prior one, it's not to spend a lot of time talking about CX. Spend a lot of time talking about how we drive growth for the organization and reduce the friction for our customers.
Very nice. Todd, I mean this sincerely. I'm going to gush a bit more. You're doing amazing work. You're sharing amazing information. I highly, highly encourage everyone listening to pick up the 10-second customer journey. I can attest to everything in there. It is spot on. So cheers to you. Cheers to your team. I'd suggest following Todd on LinkedIn, always sharing great content. Thanks for joining us, friend. Is there any parting thoughts you'd like to share?
I would just say the process of customer experience is different than it was 5 years ago, a year ago. There's a lot changing, but really bringing the best of what has been in the past with the modern tools and technology that we have today. You have opportunities to grow, back to what we talked about, that are limitless.
Amazing conversation. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.